Hilary Baldwin versus Alec Baldwin. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. One thing that often interests people who have an interest in understanding narcissism is what happens when you get two narcissists that come together. Whether they are in a romantic relationship, in business, in politics, whether they are friends or family, what is the outcome? Well, there are lots of different outcomes that can occur, and I've taken you through some of them in the two videos When Narcissists Collide Parts 1 and 2, and I would invite you to watch those videos to understand more. In some instances, you can get a clash. In other instances, the narcissists can work together, and in many instances, you might have a combination of the two. To understand instances of narcissists whereby they appear to work well together, you should also watch my video, Narcissistic Cementation. I'm now going to provide you with a brilliant example of two narcissists in action together, which are Hilary Baldwin and Alec Baldwin. Perma-furious Alec is great entertainment with regard to demonstrating his narcissism, and I've undertaken a detailed analysis of him separately, which you can find on this channel with his playlist. I've also provided an examination of Hilary Baldwin. Now, these are two narcissists that have come together in a relationship, and so far the relationship has endured. Because ultimately, the narcissism of both of these narcissists recognizes that there is a value in the continuance of their relationship. They will devalue one another, and you're about to see a public devaluation, nay, an emasculation of Alec Baldwin, which may surprise you, by his wife. But it also provides you with a brilliant opportunity to see how their narcissism interacts with one another so that their narcissism both gets what is required. Baldwin, as I've explained previously, is an upper lesser type B. This means that with regard to his behaviours, he's bombastic and belligerent. But that doesn't mean that he's like that all of the time. He can't be a raging bull all of the time. But it also means that he doesn't operate a facade of sweetness and light or a facade of being a wonderful human being. He just generally cools down. Donald Trump is an upper lesser type B also, and there'll be instances where you have seen him behave in a bombastic and belligerent fashion. But there's also instances where he is able to keep that rage under control, not with regard to the extension of facade, but simply not responding, and in his own mind thinking ill of that individual to give him that assertion of control through the third assertion of control. A good example of that recently with Trump was when somebody rather rudely pushed a boom from a mic into his face. And whilst he was talking, that was very rude and would naturally threaten a narcissist's control. Some narcissists would lash out. What do you think you're playing at? Why do you think you're doing that? But with Trump, his heated, ignited fury stayed under control, albeit there was something of a glare as he looked at the perpetrator as if to say, if I were not speaking on television now, I would tear you a new one. And in his own mind, he will have been thinking to himself, this person is a grade A douche canoe. And that enables him to jettison that individual and maintain control without him exploding. Not because he's operating a facade, but simply that his ignited fury remains under control in those circumstances. And you're about to see an instance whereby Alec Baldwin's need for control is tested by his wife, as he has already threatened his wife's need for control. Let's have a look at the short piece of footage.
It's going to be great. You're a winner.
Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking.
Sorry.
No, when I'm talking, you're not talking. This is why, yes, we'll have to just cut him out of the show. No, no, I mean, I think this is a
As you can see, both the Baldwins are on the red carpet at an event appertaining to Planet Hollywood, and they're being interviewed by a channel called Extra. Hilary Baldwin, how you say, in English, cucumber, is talking away, jabbering at 100 miles an hour as she's oft wanting to do. She's asserting control over the interviewer by talking her usual gobbledygook and talking about herself. And then, in order to bring control over to him and to bring some fuel for himself, Alec Baldwin interjects and makes a couple of comments. That immediately threatens Hilary Baldwin's need for control. Rather than just stay silent and maintain some kind of facade or keep the heated, ignited fury under control, she immediately turns and snaps and states, "Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking." She simply snaps. She doesn't say, "Excuse me, darling, I'm just talking here." She is abrupt, and that shows her narcissism, that she exhibits no emotional empathy towards the interviewer or Alec Baldwin. She shows her high-handed arrogance that simply, when I'm talking, everybody else must remain silent because I, the amazing and great Hilary, how you say again in English, cucumber, Baldwin, is speaking. I am the one that is talking, and therefore everybody else has to stay shut up. And she upbraids her husband in this way by rounding on him. "Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking." His narcissism immediately offers false contrition, which an upper lesser type B can utilize. It's not common, but it does occur, whereby he says, "I'm sorry." He doesn't mean it, but his narcissism causes him to say it to try and to placate his wife, to nullify the threat to control posed by what she has said to him. Hilary repeats it. "When I'm talking, you're not talking." And she turns and she looks at the camera to assert control over the audience, also then looking back at the interviewer. She continues, in effect, humiliating Baldwin by saying, "This is why we'll have to cut him out of the picture." You can see, as she's saying, "This is why we have to cut him out of the picture," Baldwin is less than impressed. He looks directly into the camera, and at that juncture, his heated, ignited fury is starting to rise. In some circumstances, he would have turned around and reacted directly to her. "Who do you think you are to tell me to be quiet? You don't tell me to shut up. You're always jibber-jabbering. Shut up yourself." You can see by the expression on his face that he is looking into the camera as to say, "Well, I'm not impressed by that. Aren't you either, viewers?" As he attempts to assert control indirectly. Of course, the camera isn't going to respond to him, but that's where his narcissism has gone. He attempted to assert control over her directly with false contrition. It failed because she again told him, "When I'm talking, you're not talking." She then doubled down by saying, "This is why we're going to have to cut him out." This is belittling behaviour, as she further sought to assert control over him, nullifying the threat to control posed by his interruption. His narcissism decides the direct approach isn't working, so he moves to an indirect assertion of control, where he simply looks to the camera as if to say, "That's not good, is it? I'm not impressed by that kind of behaviour." You can almost hear the furious cogs turning in Alec Baldwin's mind as he glances at her, glaring, some of the cold fury appearing, as she then, her narcissism content because he stayed silent, that control has once again been obtained. And then Baldwin looks into the distance and then starts to remove himself. Now, I've had to cut the clip slightly to avoid copyright issues. But what Baldwin then goes and does is he basically walks round the back of his wife and starts talking to somebody else. He nullifies her threat to control by removing himself, the third assertion of control. So it's a fantastic, albeit short, but brilliant exchange that demonstrates the way that two narcissists are interacting with one another. And their narcissism, particularly with regard to Hilary Baldwin, is on full display. She is talking, therefore she's asserting control over the audience and the interviewer, drawing fuel by way of any facial expressions that the interviewer is posing. Baldwin, in order to bring control to himself, speaks. That interrupts his wife, which threatens her need for control. She immediately turns and upbraids him with, "Oh my God, when I'm talking, you're not talking." That threatens his need for control. He seeks to nullify that threat to control by offering false contrition with, "I'm sorry." Doesn't provide her with satisfaction, as she continues with, "When I'm talking, you're not talking." And then she triangulates Baldwin with the audience by looking at the camera and saying, "This is why we'll have to cut him out of the picture." This further threatens Baldwin's control, and his heated, ignited fury starts to appear. But he manages to keep it under control. He doesn't say anything other than looks at the camera as a need to try and assert control indirectly, but the camera stays silent, so that doesn't help him. He glares at his wife, she doesn't notice, and therefore his narcissism then takes him away, causing him to move around the back of her and talk to somebody else. This all takes place in a matter of seconds and shows the moment-by-moment nature of the narcissism. It shows an upper lesser type B for once keeping his heated, ignited fury under control. It shows another narcissist being rude and unpleasant towards him, and her need for control as she belittles him and then continues to talk to the camera. A fantastic example of two narcissists interacting. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.